Today, we're going to share the first things that got us unstuck at our lowest points with fibromyalgia. I'm Sharon, she's Ginevra. We both have personal and professional expertise with fibromyalgia. We've really been loving your comments. Thank you for sending those in and for letting us know your stories. It means a lot to us, and it actually is the motivation behind this show. Thank you. Please keep those coming in. And we know that many of you are really struggling, and you've really got us thinking about the early days with fibromyalgia and what that was like, or even for some of you, maybe it's not the beginning of fibro, but you've been struggling without help for a very long period of time. So today we thought we would answer some of those questions that you dropped in the comments about what are treatments that helped you. And we're going to do that in terms of what helped us in the very beginning of fibromyalgia.
Because we thought the beginning was a good place to start. Seems natural. I do want to say first that we want to recognize that fibromyalgia is absolutely a complex illness. The treatment of fibromyalgia is complex, needs to be personalized. It could fill up many episodes or a whole book, but we just wanted to start with our early days and really share some of our human personal experience, while at the same time recognizing that what works for us might not necessarily work for you. And our goal overall with this show is to provide high quality information that's research-based, but also to provide support, community, and to give you a window into our lives and our personal experiences. And hopefully something in there can be useful.
For sure.
So in my early days, I remember desperately just trying everything. Like I tried anything and everything, spent so much money, so much time, didn't really have good guidance from doctors, healthcare providers. So I was just bumbling around trying to find stuff on my own, which was really hard in and of itself, for sure. And we will talk, I know in other episodes, we'll talk about how to build your support team and find a good healthcare provider, or at least a good enough healthcare provider. But for my part, when I first got sick with fibro, maybe a year into my journey, I started working with a naturopath, and she did some food sensitivity testing for me. And it showed that basically dairy was something that my body had an inflammatory reaction to. So she told me to cut out dairy, and I didn't really believe it would help. But at that point, I was like, okay, try anything. I'm desperate. And within about a week of stopping dairy, I started to notice that the all over flu-like body aches eased up. It wasn't like all my pain was gone, but that very particular achy, flu-y feeling, that really quieted down. And I was like, okay.
I had seen a rheumatologist because I was having some different health issues. And during that kind of quest of what was going on with me, a massage therapist that I was seeing for TMJ said, I think you have fibromyalgia. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that is. So I ended up going to a rheumatologist, and he met with me, did an exam, and then he left the room and he came back in, and he literally threw a prescription for antidepressants at me and a brochure to the Arthritis Foundation and said, you have fibromyalgia. You just need to learn how to live with it. And he left the room.
That blows my mind. Throwing a pamphlet at a patient and then leaving the room, like, not a good patient interaction. I would just say that is not what we're looking for with the doctor-patient interaction.
I was, I was shocked, and I was 23-ish, and I had sadly done a fair amount of doctoring due to other health issues, but still at that young age, I wasn't at all like I am now with physicians. And yeah, and I was just sitting there going, what did he call that again? And I had heard the word once before at that massage therapist, but I was like, fibro what? And I'm like, do I have questions? And I'm like, screw it. I'm like, okay, I'll be fine. I'll get better. It'll be fine. And I didn't fill the prescription because I thought, I don't know why he'd give me antidepressants. And I just went about life. Within a couple of weeks, I was bedridden.
So
And
he told you not to exercise, right?
he
Or do
did.
not
Thank you
lift or
for bringing that up.
yeah.
Yeah, he said that was the other thing he said. He said, "Don't exercise," because I love to exercise, so it was very active, and he said, "Get lots of rest and just relax." So I went on short-term disability. I had to at that point because I wasn't moving at this point in the story anyways, but anyhow, yeah, so then when I got bedridden from 2 nights of not sleeping at all, and I'm just having a moment of fibro fog, and I'm gonna point that out that fibro fog happens to Ginevra and I. It's
Oh,
like
yes.
part of having fibro, and we've actually been doing a couple takes on the show tonight to get it how we like it. The fibro fog's kicking in, and you're gonna see that happen on a few episodes. But anyways, yes, so not having slept for 2 nights really kicked the fibro into, like, high gear, and I was living with my parents at the time, and my mom picked up the brochure from the Arthritis Foundation that the doctor had thrown at me, and she called it, and they ended up having a conversation, and they suggested that actually antidepressants are given to help people sleep, and perhaps that's why he'd written it, and they encouraged me filling it and following up with a doctor, and
New
also
doctor. Maybe finding a new one.
Exactly. And they recommended a variety of things. And before I go to that next thing, I'll just say that sleep piece then became really important. I did have to find a new doctor, and that medication actually, not the first one that I was given, but after many trials and errors of different medications, we found a medication that helped with sleep. And sleep is just so critical. And as a health coach, that's actually where I often start with my clients is working on improving sleep because often if that's out of whack, which it usually is for us with fibro, it's really hard to make much progress without working on that sleep piece first.
That's interesting because that is exactly where I start with patients. I start working on sleep because it's so foundational and 100% across the board, people with fibromyalgia have sleep issues. We don't get into high quality sleep. Sleep improvement actually is an important part of my journey, but it came later. I don't think any doctor I spoke with or any healthcare provider during that whole time ever talked about sleep or asked me about sleep or yeah, that didn't come up for me until later. And it has been a really fundamental piece of how I take care of myself today and more recently. And we will talk about sleep in many other episodes, but it is really interesting to me. That was the first thing that helped. And then did you start to get some sleep and feel a little
I did, and then right at the same time too, I was having a lot of jaw problems, which thanks to my jaw, that's actually how I fell into getting this diagnosis of fibromyalgia. And so I was going to physical therapy for my jaw, and then they knew I had fibromyalgia on top of it. So they worked with both elements, but just honestly getting the TMJ a little more under control helped the fibromyalgia. TMJ stands for temporomandibular joint dysfunction. It's also sometimes called TMD. It commonly occurs with fibromyalgia. It's actually one of 10 chronic overlapping pain conditions that can occur with fibro. So, anyways, getting the treatment for that condition also then helped the fibromyalgia. And in learning different practices that were available to treat the TMJ and the fibromyalgia at physical therapy, I learned about things like massage and also craniosacral body work, which is a form of massage. It's very light and gentle.
I love craniosacral. So relaxing.
It's very relaxing, and if you don't like pressure because of the fibro pain, like, it's generally pretty, I think, tolerated for most people because it's such a light work, but those 2 modalities, learning more about massage and craniosacral really helped put me on a better path, and the cool thing about those was I had instant relief. I wasn't pain-free, but it was the first time that within trying something, immediately you could feel this lessening, this amount of pain is manageable. I can function with this. And it was so encouraging to feel like, oh, there's a way to relieve this pain.
I
And I
can totally relate. Physical therapy, it sounds like, was pretty key for you, along with experimenting with different body work that you tolerated and was helpful. I will say for me, because it was my muscles that hurt, I definitely tried lots of different body work, manual therapy techniques. And typically I tried like Swedish massage and a variety of different kind of massage techniques. And some of them maybe helped me a little bit, but it was like really short term. A lot of it seemed to actually make me feel worse. Like the next day I was flared up, but I kept going back to it, partly because I didn't know what else to do. Partly it was because my muscles felt really tight and painful. So I was like, it's just maybe I haven't found the right therapist. Like it's my muscles hurt. I need a massage. So I was banging my head against the wall there. And really, I wasn't finding much pain relief other than what I'd found with the dietary changes until went on my honeymoon. This was about 18 months into my fibro journey. And we were in Sedona, Arizona, and driving along the road, and this physical therapy clinic popped up, and it was myofascial release for, I think it was like authentic healing or for pain relief. And I just had this immediate gut level intuitive, I need that. And I literally was like, honey, turn the car around. So we like go in, and I think they saw me that day, or maybe it was like the next day. They got me in really quickly, which is unusual because they're usually really busy, right? So it was a wonderful synchronicity. Thank you, universe. And it was unlike it was not like massage. It was very slow, and this gentle, sustained pressure. It was almost like the therapist was really slowly helping me to stretch, but it was like really subtle. And while it was happening, I was like, are they even doing anything? I don't know. But then afterwards, I remember when the therapist like left the room and I was getting dressed, I was like, wait, like I think my neck pain is like a little bit better. And it was like, oh, this hallelujah moment, because up until that point, nothing I tried had helped. And I didn't feel like that it was even possible for me to get any pain relief. And it was like, once I had that little bit of that glimpse of, oh, okay, this helps, that really helped to give me hope again, which is super important in your fibro journey. And I will talk a lot about myofascial release. You will be very tired of me talking about myofascial release. Sharon probably already is. We're at episode 4. But if you want to learn more about it, I talk about it in some of my other videos and also in my book, The Fibro Manual. And there actually is some data supporting it. There's some good research that shows that it can be helpful to reduce fibromyalgia pain. So yeah, when I got home after the honeymoon, got home to Boston, found a local myofascial release therapist who was amazing. And I worked with her pretty intensely for 3 to 6 months, both working with her and also doing a lot of stretches that she would teach me myself. And myofascial release is something you can do for yourself. And I'll link to the description to one of my little videos from last summer where I tried to show people my favorite myofascial release stretch. So it's something you could look into yourself.
That's awesome. And yeah, I like that the piece you mentioned in your story about trying massage before finding myofascial release, and like knowing like the modality probably seemed like a helpful thing, but you just didn't find the right style or even maybe the right practitioner. And so I always encourage people like don't give up on a modality just because maybe the experience isn't good. Certainly there's probably something in you that knows, yes, this is like for me, or no, this is just not something that works, or maybe there's some significant side effects. But if there's not significant negative reasons to not try it, I really encourage people to try it again with a different therapist because, oh my gosh, like at the physical therapy clinic where they were trying the different therapies, it would some days I'd get one person and the next day I'd get a different person doing those, and it was night and day difference as far as,
Totally.
"Oh, this didn't even help me today." Whereas when the other lady did it, it was fantastic.
Right. You're like, could I
Yeah,
have the other lady?
exactly. I did get to the point where I'd be like, "If possible, can I schedule my appointments for the days over here?" Because I would notice a big difference
Yeah,
in that.
I do the same for patients if I'm trying to guide them. And if, let's say, there's a therapy that I want them to try again, maybe try it with a different practitioner. I think that's always a reasonable approach. But I also think we have to sometimes take a step back and really look at, we don't have unlimited resources. And unfortunately, insurance doesn't often pay for those things that are helpful, like craniosacral or myofascial release. So I also think, and part of what I've tried to do in my book and what I'll try to do in this show is want to try to help at least give people a little bit better direction to like be pointed in as far as, hey, there's some research that shows that myofascial release is helpful. Let me try that. So you're not having to just blindly try things, so that you aren't wasting
Mhm.
precious resources and spoons and time. The other thing is at least for myofascial release, if a physical therapist is doing it, sometimes massage will pay for it. So they will sometimes pay for physical therapy where they won't massage therapy. So that's another kind of way that people can try to get their insurance to help them out.
Yeah, and another tip is sometimes it's not covered by insurance, but especially with the new year starting, HSAs and FSAs will can be utilized, not for everybody, but for some people. So check that. So for some, just having those funds available for the massage is really helpful.
I think you need like a doctor's note that says the massage is for medical reasons, and that's it. But yeah, I think
Yeah.
most doctors would be happy to help you with that.
Yeah.
I
So
mean,
that I
yeah, no, go ahead. The other piece was exercise. Yeah.
yeah, which we both had in common again.
Yes. But we both had our unique relationships to it. I know you actually, when you were really on bed rest for several weeks, it really made you worse and became like really weak and like really weren't even able to get around your house.
I could not. I would walk from my bedroom to the kitchen and I would lay down on the floor for a nap. And I just lived in a small ranch and it just, I don't know, 30 steps. And I was just wiped out. And
Yeah,
I, weeks prior, had been like rollerblading like a couple miles, bike riding like 5, 8 miles. And I mean, at the end there, when I was starting to get things, that was hard. And I shouldn't have been doing that much. But now after working in this space for 27 years, the right move for somebody like me would have been to keep me moving, but to modify it because indeed what I was doing was too much at that time. But to shift me from that to do nothing, I think is why it contributed to why I became bedridden. And it honestly was really hard to get moving again. It took a
yeah,
long time. It was like my brain didn't connect to my body anymore. It was like partly strength, but partly it just was hard for me to figure out how to move again. It's really complicated for those of you out there who are dealing with that, or maybe you have loved ones dealing with that, it's really confusing and frustrating for us. And know that they're like trying really hard. It's really hard, or they may, one day walk from their bedroom and go outside to the mailbox. And then the next day they're like me. They can't walk from their room to the kitchen. Like it fluctuates and it's confusing and it's scary.
absolutely. It made me like tear up when you said that because it's true. Like, I think what can happen with fibro is like we're trying so hard, and on one day we may be able to do something that then on the next day we can't. And I think to the outside person looking in, it's just so unpredictable and frustrating. And this is why we call it an invisible illness, is because we might look fine. And even on certain days, we might even be behaving or able to do certain things that then on other days we can't. Yeah, I think that's like a really tough one for family.
Yeah, and so for me, what got me moving again was, as I mentioned earlier, my mom called the Arthritis Foundation, and I thought, yeah, I'll try the water exercise program. And so I went to that. It was a warm water pool, and it was really hard. Those beginning days were super hard, but the probably the best part about that was I got to meet Marianne, who was the instructor in the pool, who I go into that story more in episode 1, and we'll link it down below. But just meeting somebody with fibro who not only did she have fibro, but she's in the pool leading the class, jumping around, decades older than me. And I was like, oh my God, okay, I'm going to be able to do this. It's
Yeah,
going to be okay. And so that combined with Marianne giving me these great exercises that I could do in the pool that were a lot less painful, honestly, than the walk from the parking lot to the pool was really helpful because being in a warm water pool is really beneficial at a certain point. In the beginning, that was still hard for me, but over time, that became a wonderful safe space and
I bet you
great
didn't want to get
place.
out of the pool.
I did not want to leave the pool.
So For me, there are pools involved in my exercise story, but I will say my relationship with exercise was incredibly frustrating because every doctor, the ones that like were able to give me some advice or did believe fibro was real, pretty much every single one of them said exercise. And books that I looked at, websites, everything said that same thing. And so I would try. I was trying to do it. And I, no matter, it seemed like no matter what exercise I did, I managed to somehow overdo it, hurt myself, and I tried all sorts of things. And I remember like the breaking point for me with exercise was when I was in the pool, and that's supposed to be like low impact, gentle exercise. And I like sprained my neck. Like I
Mm.
like could barely get out of the pool. And I was like, did I just injure myself swimming? Like, how is this even possible? And I just got so fed up and
Mm.
so frustrated. I really turned away from that type of exercise. I wish that I had been given different guidance, things that I know now, but at that point, I gave up on it for a good bit of time. And then I started to ease my way back in, but I did things like yoga. And in particular, I found, for me at least, the matching of like movement with my breath, with kind of gentle stretching, was super helpful both for my body and my mind. Like it helped calm down my nervous system. And so that was really all the exercise
Mm.
I could do. And we'll talk more about exercise in future videos, and I'll tell more about what I learned later on in my journey. But I would say in the early days, I was just trying to find something that I could tolerate. And ultimately for me, yoga was it.
Yeah, and that added bonus with the yoga is that the mind body connection and that relaxation that then happens with your body. And that's just such a great benefit to have in addition to getting the movement in. So today we were talking a lot about exercise, and you might be surprised, but tune in next week because we're going to teach you why you should remove the word exercise from your vocabulary and what you should replace it with instead. And don't forget to subscribe, drop us a comment. We love hearing from you, and thanks for being here. Hang in there.